We're going to now begin our second panel titled A New Era, Advancing Mental Health Through AI and Digital Solutions. And it's my pleasure to introduce the chair for this session, Dr. Eleni Linos, who will guide us through the discussion and introduce the session speakers. Dr. Linos is the director of the Stanford Center for Digital Health and is professor of medicine, dermatology, and epidemiology. She also serves as an associate dean for research, and her work focuses on harnessing technology and digital tools to improve health outcomes with a special emphasis on equity and accessibility. We're delighted to have her chairing this session and guiding today's discussion. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Linos.
Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you, Leanne, and thank you to all the organizers of this incredible meeting. It's an honor to be here with you. And today I'm going to introduce three incredible speakers who together will join at the end of their presentations to discuss this really important topic titled A New Era, Advancing Mental Health Through AI and Digital Solutions. I am especially delighted to introduce our first speaker, Adam Gazzaley, who is the David Dolby Distinguished Professor of Neurology, Physiology and Psychiatry at UCSF, and the founder and executive director of Neuroscape, a center focused on developing technology-based tools to assess and optimize brain function. He's also co-founder of Akili and Jazz Venture Partners and has served as a scientific advisor to many companies, including Apple, GE, and Janssen. He holds multiple patents, and he invented the first video game approved by the FDA that we'll learn more about today. He's authored almost 200 scientific publications, over 700 invited talks, and his book, The Distracted Mind, Ancient Brains in a High-Tech World, which I'm going to order right after this for myself and my family, received the 2017 PROSE Award, and he's hosted a PBS special titled The Distracted Mind. It's such an honor to have you join us today, Adam, and thank you for your presentation.
Great. So great to be back here at Stanford and get to spend a little time with you. I am going to give you a quick whirlwind. I only have 14 minutes today to give you some high-level views and perspectives. Do I have slides? They'll come up. Can we restart the clock? I only have 14 minutes. Okay, so let's dive right in. Let's start with the bad news, and then I'm going to have some positive things to share with you today. I believe that we are in the midst of a, okay. We'll go back to the beginning. Did you get all that? I could just sit down and we could chat. Did check this. Now I have 13 minutes. Okay, here we go. All right. So it's a pleasure to be with you. We're going to dive in because we really do not have a lot of time. I like to give a big, deep intro to this topic because there is a lot of framing that I feel is necessary. We don't have time for all of that, but I do want to frame this from this perspective that I started telling you about of us being in a crisis, not just the external crisis we've inflicted upon our planet, but an internal crisis, a crisis of our minds. What I'm going to refer to here as a cognition crisis. It actually relates a lot to the first session in that I define cognition broadly, including how we attend, perceive, remember, make decisions, feel empathy and compassion, regulate our emotions. And I'd say when it comes across, across all of those different domains, we are tragically lacking. Now, there have been times in history where societies have prioritized enhancing the functions of the human mind. I would say that this is just not one of those times, unfortunately. And we're paying a great price for that, both in the clinical domain. We know over 500 million people around the planet are suffering debilitating effects of impaired cognition. We know that's getting worse. We already heard a little bit about that. But I would say the reason I call it a cognition crisis and not the better well-known mental health crisis is that it extends beyond the clinical domain and touches everyone. So our limitations in long-term analytical decision-making, empathic concern, sustained attention is plain to see, right? You just have to read the news every day. And so we have a problem right now. Unfortunately, our paradigm is that there is a pill out there, a magic brain pill that we have to find that will cure our ailing minds. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with the idea of a molecule to improve cognition. But as we know, and there's lots of reasons that we could spend an hour talking about, it has just not served us well. So when it comes to decreasing suffering and death, we've seen that occur. That decline is well documented for oncology and heart disease and infectious disease. But the reverse trend has occurred for afflictions of the mind, anxiety, dementia, depression, suicide, especially in our youth and seniors, as we already talked about. So what I want to talk to you about is a new approach, how we might harness the core aspects of how our brain develops and learns, and that is experience. So for thousands of years, we humans have been creating and ritualizing experiences to improve the quality of our lives. Music, dance, art, sports, games. We've also intentionally designed experiences to improve our mental health, right? We know that a core tenet of ancient meditation practices is not just enlightenment, but it's release of suffering from unhealthy states, stress, fear, grief, craving, and clinging. So this is like ancient medicine that we could use experience to improve how our brains function. We now know firmly, based on decades of science, that experience is a powerful driving force of our brain's plasticity, allowing it to change itself at every level, structure, chemistry, function, all the time, constantly. But despite this history and its strong foundations in modern science, most people just do not think about experience as medicine, certainly not in the same way that they view a pill. It has just been marginalized as the alternative. And that is a shame. And that is a crime, I think, in many ways, for what we should be capable of right now. And so for the last 2 decades, I've been working to change this by showing that technology can deliver a very unique type of experience that has a powerful influence on our cognition. And I call that the closed loop experience, one in which the environment that you're exposed to is being updated and personalized in real time based upon your state in the moment. So here's a quick cartoon of how that works. So you're interacting with a digitally delivered closed loop experience. And while that's happening, data being captured by sensors is recording your state in the moment, your level of stress, your emotions, your performance, your cognitive abilities. That is then fed into a processor that's adaptively sending out an environment to you where sensations, challenges, and rewards are all being targeted in the moment to how you're responding to them, right? And this could be on a mobile device, it could be in a virtual simulation. So 2 points I want to really spend just a second breaking down here. It is the nature of this experience that activates brain networks selectively, allowing us to precisely target these interventions. I know the emphasis here is on precision. That is something we have never, ever accomplished with a drug or any other type of therapeutic before. The brain responds selectively to experiences. So it is a tool that we can get more selective, lower side effect treatments. And it is the adaptive nature of the closed loop experience that applies continuous pressure to those underlying networks to essentially just harness our brain's inherent plasticity to improve function over time. So that's sort of the high level. Now let's get into some details. This is one slide putting together almost a 20-year journey now. In 2008, I had the idea of building a video game as a closed loop experience to improve attention in older adults. Why a video game? Because play is a very unique type of experience. It creates deep immersion and engagement in the moment, and it brings people back again, creating something in the field that we call compliance. So this video game, I'm not going to spend time going through how it works and what's under the hood. We don't have time for that right now, but I could tell you that 5 years after doing multiple research trials, we published this in Nature cover story in 2013, September 2013, an important moment for us scientists to have these type of findings that can really share the vision that we can work with professionals in a completely different industry, do a very careful, well-controlled study, and show here that older adults improve their ability to play the game after just 12 hours of gameplay, but we also improve their attention and their memory for faces outside of the game, show with neural recordings the mechanism of action, and show sustainability of some of these effects even 6 months later, now some of them 6 years later. This led for me to want to translate this beyond the lab into the world, and I started my first company in 2010, and then over these intervening period of time, we built a way better version of the game, higher art, music, story, reward cycles, but still preserving the underlying closed loop engine that existed in NeuroRacer. Then after dozens of clinical trials, we now have, as you heard, in 2020, gone through the FDA as a Class 2 medical device approved to treat children, now adolescents, and now adults. So 3 FDA approvals for this game as essentially the first FDA-approved experiential medicine and video game. This was just recently approved in Japan by their PMDA for children and adolescents with ADHD based on a whole different set of trials done in that country. So I'm very proud of this. There's a lot to talk about in terms of the challenges of having a prescription-only video game for children and what that means. But we now have tens of thousands of prescriptions in every state, hundreds of thousands of adults using the over-the-counter product, which is the approval that we sought for adults. So happy to answer any questions of that. I'll be around all day if you want to talk about Endeavor. But let's step back into the lab for a moment. In parallel, my lab at UCSF became a research center called Neuroscape. We've created a very unique set of laboratories here to really bridge advances in technology with neuroscience to create these new solutions, as well as a whole set of diagnostics. Just to show you a couple things and not talk about the details, we do a lot of work in trying to take the principles of mindfulness and concentrative meditation and integrate them with closed loop designs of rewards and performance feedback. We have a lot of data on this game called MetaTrain that we co-developed with an expert in the field, Jack Cornfield, several publications showing children, adults, and seniors have benefits in attention by playing this at home, including stress regulation. We have a new finding of lengthening of telomeres after just 6 weeks of play. We're excited to now extend this to a game that takes focused meditation principles to children and then moves beyond breath focus to words of loving kindness, a meditation known as metta, to look for benefits on empathy and compassion. We've done a lot of work over the years with virtual reality as a way of creating more real world experiences, as well as motion capture and other types of immersive treatments. And you can see a whole host of publications showing improvement in attention, memory in children, adults, even showing many of them with retained benefits 1 year later. So I don't have to describe to you, these are extraordinary times. And I would say it should be clear that the advances in things like augmented reality, virtual reality, wearable recording devices, motion capture, gives us a unique opportunity to expand this field of experiential medicine, especially digitally delivered experiential medicine. Most of this is being targeted for communications and for entertainment, but there is just an opportunity to bring this into the domain that all of you are here today to talk about. And then there's the elephant in the room, AI. Tons to talk about there. I'll give you just a quick sneak peek into what we're doing in that domain. So this is a project that I started 5 years ago during COVID, seeing a little bit of the writing on the walls of AI and also having a real interest in trying to unite it with nature. For me, nature has been a strong source of restoration and even transformation. And there's an emerging literature showing that nature has benefits on anxiety and stress, restoration from cognitive fatigue, sleep in healthy populations, clinical populations. Even we now know, like in Japan, there's a practice called Shinrin-yoku, also known as forest bathing, which is now prescribed as a treatment for multiple conditions and has also left there and traveled around the world. can technology be used to deliver nature stimuli to have some of those benefits? Not to say don't go out in nature, but to make it more accessible to people that might not have access and make it more controlled as a therapeutic. So here's a quick view of a study that we've been building, both technically challenging and also analytically challenging, as I'll show you. So we created this 1 hour nature journey with Louis Schwartzberg, whose images you were just watching. He's a filmmaker from LA. He made a fantastic fungi. If you haven't seen it, I highly endorse that film, quite interesting. And an artist named East Forest, and really built a powerful experience to evoke emotions, awe, wonder. And then as a participant in this study, you would do it inside our multi-sensory immersion laboratory, where you see, hear, smell, and feel that journey. So it's like this beautiful one-person lab to try to invoke a high-level experience, which is required to understand experience. But we take that and we bridge that with our multimodal biosensing system, 160 electrodes across the brain and the body, to try to really capture the most comprehensive information about your state in the moment. So what are we doing with this? A lot. I'll just tell you a little bit. The first question is, can we understand the transition from baseline states to stimulus-triggered emotions, to its effect both acutely and in the long term on measures of well-being? Right? This is a fundamental process by which experience changes us. And it is very, very poorly understood how we temporally move through these events and all the individual differences. So that's the high level, really has not been done yet. And I think it really requires both a multi-sensory experience and multimodal recordings, and also the high level analytics, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, of making sense of that. We also hopefully could learn the value of nature stimuli, which you smell and see and feel wind as you go through an experience like this. And then how might nature lead to improvements in well-being, but also increase empathy for nature, which I actually think is critical for our survival on this planet, for that to increase. So those are some of the specific goals. But this also sets up the AI potential, right? Because where we want to go from this, and this is probably not a hard thing for you to imagine given what I already shared with you, is to close the loop. How can multimodal biosensing be used to directly create a multisensory immersive experience? So the first pathway, which is accessible, hard but accessible, is to use machine learning to rapidly interpret this multimodal data and then feed reduced prompts to large language models for stimulus generation. This has not been done, but it is doable and accessible to us. This is where we're starting. The more ambitious and challenging route is to create a full closed loop AI, where real-time multimodal physiology is being used to directly prompt the generation of personalized multisensory environments that then go back and changes the source data because it changes you and flows through again. So a closed loop generative AI model. What emerges here is like a dynamic dance between you and AI, which is stimulating and challenging your brain to enhance your cognition and hopefully preventatively avoiding the slippery slide into unhealthy mental states. So I think there's a lot of real potential here as this is a preventative treatment. So to conclude and bring this home, the future that I see for experiential medicine is multimodal biosensing, integrated with game mechanics, art, music, story, and sensory immersion, wrapped together, woven together into a powerful AI-delivered closed-loop experience. I think that this is where we are heading for very, very powerful mental health treatments. At Neuroscape, we're also interested in how this experiential medicine might interact with molecular medicine. Remember, I said there's nothing wrong with this concept. The biggest sort of crime that we have committed over the last 80 years is just building a silo around molecular treatment, that it sits over here, therapy, meditation, all other experiences sit over here. Not even that, we build a silo around every single pill and separate it from others. There's no way that we're gonna ever deal with anything as complex as the human brain if we think in those buckets. So how do these interact? This is almost completely an unexplored field of how molecular and experiential medicine work together. The area that we're beginning our exploration in this is a particular molecule that we'll put in the category of psychedelics. So we've already started studies on how experience can guide a treatment more safely and effectively. There's a lot more to talk about there. We don't have time for that. So I just want to conclude saying that if we are going to have a long, healthy future on this planet, we need to address the cognition crisis now. We can do better and we need to do better. And these are hopefully some ideas that stimulate your thinking in this domain. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Gazzaley. That was wonderful and inspiring. We'll move to our